Time to clean up my music business with some gig soap.
Take me through the water.
Welcome to the Gigso Podcast. I am here today with a longtime friend, Brandon Miller of the Brandon Miller Band, of the Daniel Nicole Band, and obviously some other projects as well. Brandon has played guitar his entire life, and he has done what most musicians would just have dreamed of doing. Is that I don't know that you ever worked a job, have you?
A few side jobs here and there.
Side jobs, all right. But they
to
don't count. They don't count.
to help the dream. But I went to college and for that backup plan, and luckily the backup plan has never come into effect. So
Awesome. Well,
I'm
thanks
doing
for
all
being on
right.
the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chad.
Yeah,
Looking
man.
forward to it.
So, we were just talking a little bit before you got on here. I mean, you're not just playing, you're traveling the world. So tell us a little bit about where you've been lately and what's been going on.
Yeah, we had our latest album, The Love You Bleed, dropped last year, and had a lot of great success with that, great reviews. So this year was kind of the follow-up to that, and we spent quite a bit of time overseas. We were in Spain for a couple weeks, and finally broke into Italy as well in July, which neither Danielle or I had ever been to Italy. I guess the unfortunate part of it was we landed at about probably 10 a.m. in the morning, went straight to sound check for the festival, checked into the hotel, played the festival, and then lobby call back to the airport was about 3 a.m. So we were in Italy for less than 24 hours, but we checked it off the bucket list. So
Yeah, did you at least get some good food while you were there?
we did get some authentic Italian food, and it was wonderful. But we've a lot of fly dates this summer for some bigger festivals. So it wasn't necessarily as busy as we've been before, but mainly just due to the logistics and the travel, of getting from here to there and everything. But it was a good year, and we're looking forward to even busier 2026 coming up.
Yeah, for sure. I remember, we first met at your high school.
Yeah.
Yep. We were doing this tour where we were doing these shows at school, and we did one in Gardner, and you come up to the table there, and we talked then, and then it was, I think the next time I ran into you was when we had hired you for that Christmas, to play guitar at that Christmas deal, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You had called me for that.
Mhm.
And, I think I was, I don't know, maybe a freshman or a sophomore in high school,
Mhm.
when you guys came to do that. And, that really hit me, and seeing the business side of things, and how to take care of your finances, and, which, as musicians, we're not the greatest at, because of all the gear we want. But other than
Right.
that, we're wonderful.
It's those 100-watt Marshalls and the
Exactly. You always need one more. But hey, it could be worse, I guess.
yeah.
But yeah, and then you actually, when I got that call for that, those holiday lighting and the Christmas tree lighting
Mhm.
events that you would put on around town, I was actually, I think you had reached out to Scotty McBee for it, and he was booked,
Yeah.
and he recommended me. And we're lucky here in Kansas City have such a small, tight-knit community, and scene here where if someone can't do it, they can think of a handful of people right off the bat. And I was lucky early on in my career to get surrounded by some great people and some great mentors that recommended me for gigs, and that really opened up a lot of doors for me. And that was one of them because I guess I did all right because you kept calling me back, and you still
Right.
call me back
I
to
did.
this day. So I didn't play too loud, I guess, on that
Not
gig,
at that
but
one.
we were outside, so that helps, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and you were Scotty's, you were the first one. You were the top of his list, and that said something because you weren't very old at that time, I think.
No, I'm
Do you
trying to
remember?
think. I probably would have been 17 or 18 maybe,
Yeah.
if not younger. And I think luckily between hanging out with those guys at Jerry's Bait Shop in Lenexa and
Mhm.
some of the other bands, like the Rehab and Arrows that I was playing with at the time, they always were very prepared for the gigs and
Yeah.
knew their homework. And growing up in going to Gardner Edgerton High School, the band program there was um, very serious and intense. So they always expected you to be prepared, not waste their time during class. And so that was kind of drilled into me really early on to never show up, and be like, I kind of know the songs or
Yeah.
whatever it may be. So that's something that I've always prided myself in. And that's a big reason why a lot of us musicians keep getting the phone keeps ringing is because of that. So
Yeah, and you had a great support system from your parents and still do to this day. I mean, your parents are
a-
awesome. You know.
absolutely, I'm very lucky to have them. They put up with a lot, and they still do. But they would drive me to the gigs, and they'd stay as late as I possibly could, as late
Mm.
as the clubs and the bars would let me. And it's I'm sure they were always and still are huge music fans, and they would go to shows and concerts all the time. So they loved it and enjoyed it, being able to share that. But I'm sure they were nervous a few times of,
Yeah.
hey, we're gonna let you go hang out with these older people drinking and smoking when you could, smoke cigarettes still in the bars and the clubs and everything. And but they kept a close eye on me and knew that I was there for the music and the music only, and that there's a fine line of if you start to venture into that world, as a in and that you're lucky to be there as an underage kid in a bar
Yeah.
and a club. So the music was way too important to me to risk that for sure.
Yeah.
But they still to this day, if it's within 3 to 4 hours of Kansas City,
That's
they're
awesome.
driving to see the show, so.
Yeah.
And no matter how many times I tell them they're on the guest list, they still buy a ticket. So,
Nice. Yeah. Well, I mean, that speaks to character right there.
Yeah,
They're like, and the understanding of what abundance means too.
absolutely.
And so, you know, and now, you're out there touring the world, literally.
Yeah.
And yet you get back in town and you still go to these Jerry's jams and you're having this massive impact on this next wave of kids. And I don't know about you, but it's encouraging to me to see these young guitar players still showing up. You
Yeah.
know, they're not engrossed in video games all the time or whatever. They're actually, they're working hard. And so there was Nate, you know,
Yeah.
then Gunner.
Gunner. Yep.
Yeah,
Nate Gunner.
yeah,
You
no,
know, now Bradley has been
Bradley.
coming out quite a
Yeah.
bit. Um,
Mhm.
and even there's been some drummers come through
Yeah,
that have made the jump and everything. And I've always believed in, you take as much experience as you can and you can reflect on it. Um, you seem to always remember, oh, you remember that jam and it was great and this
yeah,
happened and that happened and we connected. But then you can also sit back and learn and watch other people and say, that one didn't quite work out. So you can learn from your mistakes as well. And I kind of reflect on those maybe just bad timings in the jams or certain situations or the gigs.
mhm,
And it's important to let those kids know that you're not always going to play great,
Right.
or it's not going to be the best gig, because
Especially at a jam on a song
yeah,
you don't
especially at a
know.
jam, right? Yeah, when you're trying to rely on other people that may not know the song, or
Yeah.
but it's it's all a learning experience,
Mhm.
whether it's good or bad, and you can learn that from other people if you're waiting to get up to jam and you
Yeah.
see something happen, and as a band leader, that they didn't quite communicate properly or to the band, that they can learn from that.
Yeah.
But I've always, you know, I kind of stepped away from the jam night crew for a couple years when we really started touring hard and heavy. Um, and I would still go back when I was home, but it was, um, I would just go to hang out, and kind of touch base and reconnect with
Mhm.
everybody. Um, when COVID hit, it was kind of like, okay, I'm going to be home for a while. There's
Mhm.
no gigs. And I kind of, Mike over at Jerry's, he reached out to me. He's like, I'd like to get the jam night going up again, but we'll kind of start it just acoustically, and, maybe somebody can get up and sing with you and
Mhm.
slowly implement it back. And ever since, I've tried to be there as much as I can. Even if it means, and thankfully my band's cool about it, but if we have a gig on Thursday and it's 12 hours away, it's like, okay, well, bus calls at 2 a.m. and I'll get home from Jerry's about 2 a.m. and then I'll be the one to sacrifice and take first shift and drive,
Yeah.
to wherever we're going. But it's something that I like to kind of repay to that next generation, because I saw
Mhm.
those fellow musicians, um, like yourself, but especially at Jerry's, like Scotty and Justin and Brett and Guy,
Yeah.
and so many other players that maybe weren't a part of the A team band, but were there and they're regulars, and
Mhm.
um, they taught me so much, and how to be a part of a band, and how to be a professional and play with others. And if you get to a part of the song and it's getting weird, and you just go with it, and there might be a detour here or there, but never let the audience know that you made a mistake, or that you don't know what's happening in the band. It's just like, play it cool.
Yeah.
And they did that for me. And that's just something I've always wanted to show the next generation. It's like, you can play music for a living still, and
Mhm.
you can define your own success, whether it's, hey, I just want to play in a cover band and have fun. You can do that and make money. You know, you can still live here in Kansas City and tour. You can move to Nashville like Nate and Gunnar, and the list goes on and on. But there's I want to just give that fire and that passion to the younger generation to
Yeah.
really put the time and the effort into it, and you can see the results, through your playing. And kind of that 10,000 hour rule of, the more you do it, the more enjoyable it's going to be. And I think letting some of the kids see, you know what you can do in the music world and travel,
Mhm.
and you may not have the biggest house or the most money or the nicest car, but it's like, if your bills are paid and there's roof over your head and food on the table, and at the end of the day you're able to play music, I mean,
Doing what you love. Yeah.
what more can you ask for?
Yeah.
So, and there's so many avenues in the music industry. We know other friends, that have moved to Nashville years ago, like Dan or Tyler and all these cats. And
Mhm.
some of them, my buddy John Goulsby, it's like, some of them go there and they just want to play shows, and they play shows, or other guys are studio musicians, and other guys are songwriters. You don't have to be the front man, you don't have to be the star. There's a lot of different opportunities and options in the music world that you can chase, for sure.
Yeah, one of the things Bradley shared with me, an experience he had with you that I thought was kinda defines what you're talking about here by supporting these, like, he was on a jam with you, and, He was kind of tucked back in the stage, and you physically actually pushed him to the front of the stage.
Yeah,
So he would get out of his comfort zone, you know?
absolutely.
That had a huge impact on him, It's like, "Hey, Brandon, this guy that's touring the world, just told me I need to be moving up to the front of the stage, not sitting in the back."
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And that's something that, um, even as a professional, sometimes, you kind of forget, you get in the moment, or
mhm,
your amp isn't sounding right, so you're tweaking stuff and you forget, you're like, okay, I have to be comfortable, but I have to put on a show and entertain as well. And, um, it takes me all the way back to another mentor of mine. It was Terry Adams, um, who is actually the one who told my parents about Jerry's jam night at the bait
mhm,
shop and everything. And he's like, hey, you should bring him up and play 2 songs. And Terry was always one of those, in the band he was in at the time called Stage Fright. They would invite me out and I'd play a set with them, and I ended up in the band and playing the whole night. But Terry would always look over me at me, and I'm just this 13-year-old kid trying to keep up, and Terry's over there playing the drums, and I'm just like, looking down, focusing on the guitar, and Terry would look over and he would just be like, he's a smile, bob your head, but look like you're having fun. And I'd just be
yeah.
like, nope, I am focused right here,
Right.
and so, he still gives me a hard time about that.
Yeah.
But that's something, it's like with Bradley and, you know, um, a lot of young entertainers and performers that are nervous.
Mhm.
It's like your superpower is the guitar or the
Yeah.
drums or whatever, vocals, whatever instrument you're playing. So
Yeah.
when you're holding that guitar, you have the confidence to do anything and everything you want. And you
Yeah.
stand out there because 99% of the people in the room are going, man, I wish I could do that. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um, we did with Danielle, we did a run with George Thorogood years ago. And, he came into the dressing room one night and we were all getting ready to go on for the opening set. And he had his guitar on and his sunglasses and everything. And he comes in and he's like, you guys ready to go tonight? You guys, it's a good crowd out there. I think it's sold out. We were up in the Northeast, where they're all from. So it was like sold out theater every
Mhm.
night. And, he goes, what do you think of this guitar? And I was like, oh, it's a wonderful guitar. It's beautiful. And he goes, you know what? He goes, you see the back of this guitar? And he turns the headstock around and it just had a number 1 on it. He goes, you know what that means? I was like, is that your number 1 guitar? He goes, I'm number 1. When I step on that stage, I'm the best guitar player in the world right
Yeah.
there. And I was like, that's huge, because
Yeah.
that's what they're paying the ticket for. They when in that moment there is nobody better, and you gotta have the confidence and you gotta own it.
Yeah, one of somebody that just went to a show of yours recently, I was talking to them, they described you as having they used the word energy. They said they loved the energy, and they weren't talking about like you were running around the stage. They were like, the energy you were emitting was what they noticed, you know? Um And I mean, I like, so I that reminded me of when we had you like at the town center event and you were
Yeah.
sound checking and it was 104 degrees out for sound check
Yeah.
and on pavement, and so it's probably 120 on that pavement. And and I'm sitting there off stage watching you guys and you start your first note of the sound check and there's nobody there. It's you and the techs. And you started the first note of the sound check and like all of you were just like instantly into the song. I mean, like,
Yeah.
and how that just had such an impact on me, how you were able to flip that on instantly. Like, cause I know when I'm doing sound check, I'm sitting there thinking like, "Oh, okay, is my levels all right and all this?" You know?
Yeah,
"Do I need to
right.
fix anything?" Not you
Yeah.
guys, at least not that one. It was just
Not
like,
that one.
boom. The switch flipped. You were you were in the moment right there for a sound check.
Oh,
And I was like, wow,
well, thank you.
That was cool. And no wonder that you're playing all over the world. I mean, that's what people are paying to see, is that you're
Yeah,
connecting with the music so fast yourself, so now they can connect with you.
absolutely. And something that, that I really strive for, as well as Danielle, and every time we play, it's all about the song and that moment right there. Like you
Mhm,
said, that if we're putting out that much energy and emotion into every note, then the crowd and the audience and the listener can soak up as much as they possibly can, and then we just feed off of each other, and it just gets this snowball effect of like,
yeah.
how big could this go until it just explodes. And I think, early on I was playing in a lot of cover bands, and I even before tribute bands were a thing, I was like 16-year-old kid, and they were like, "Hey, you want to dress up as Kiss and get paid for it?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" So I did all of
For
that,
free.
and but then it was like once I really started, and I had always written music, and like, my band Static Do 10 in middle school and high school, we had original music. So it wasn't like I didn't do it, but once I kind of gave everything else up and solely went full in on the original music, to where, you know, people weren't so much comparing you to another artist or saying, "Oh, I
Mhm,
love your version of this song," or "I love when you cover this song." And they're just like, you know, um, one of the biggest compliments I got was from another local guitar legend here, Freddie Francis in
mhm,
town. We were doing a show, and he was there, and he was like, he came to me afterwards. He's like, "You've always been technically right there, and the tone is great and everything." He's like, "But now when I hear something, or I hear a video on Facebook or wherever it may be," he's like, "I hear you're playing and I go, that's Brandon. Like,
mhm.
you finally found your voice and your identity, and, that's it."
Yeah.
And once I was able to, stop trying to sound like somebody, Steve Ray Vaughan, or
Mhm,
Jimmy Page, or whoever it may be, it's like those influences are still there. But once you just trust your voice and go for it, you can really, like you said, immerse yourself in every note of every song, and to where it's just oozing out of you. And it's odd, because growing up in high school and stuff, I was playing so many cover gigs, and you play for 4 hours, and by the end of it, you're like, "Man, I'm exhausted."
mhm,
And then you start to go out on the road, and you're like, "Now I have to take that 4 hours and compact it into," usually the longest set we'll do is a 90-minute set.
mhm.
Or you're on a festival, and they're like, everybody gets 60 minutes. So you're like, you have to take all that into 60 minutes, and you're even more exhausted, because it's the songs that you write, and it's the story that you have to tell. Um, and it really, and Danielle, really playing with her, really, I mean, just, I don't know how she does it every night, singing and playing bass, and just like,
That's a unique gift in its own, just singing and
yeah,
playing bass.
to just sit there every night and watch that and be like, how do you
Yeah.
just, you know, put all that out there for
Mhm.
90 minutes every night? But it's contagious, and
Yeah.
you have something to prove as well on the road, because people are paying money to see you, and you don't want to let them down. And the first time you're, you know playing in a different city, and nobody knows you, but they're singing the words to your songs. Or we go to Europe, and it's like, we're in Germany, and I don't speak any German, but they're singing the song, like the words to the songs, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Man, this is I never I never dreamed of this. I just wanted to play guitar." So, um, but yeah, I appreciate that. That means a lot. That you felt that. That's what our heroes did to us to make us feel that way, and
Mhm.
that's all we strive for in the end.
Yeah, and so you've got an interesting, unique thing, because I know that the Brandon Miller Band has opened for the Daniel Nicole Band.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you've got to change roles with probably about, what, a 15-minute break?
Yeah, usually, that 15 to 20 minutes, you go
Yeah.
back and
What's
change
that
shirts
like?
and
Because you go from I'm leading, s even though to now I'm supporting.
yeah, it's it's, you kinda just gotta pace yourself a little bit, it's like for the opening set, we might get 30 or 40 minutes, so you're trying to say everything you can in that 30 to
Mhm.
40-minute set and get your point across. And then as soon as you come back, you just take a breath and relax and then get in that mindset of I'm still here to support the song and the lyrics and the melody. And that's Danielle. So, I play off of her at that point. She's the lead and the song comes first and foremost, for us, even in my trio where it's guitar driven,
Mm.
I always say that I'm a guitar player first, and then I decided to sing later in life, out of necessity. But with Danielle, it's all about supporting her voice and the song, and um, it is a different mindset in a sense that
And for those that don't know, you're married too.
yeah, we are
On
married.
top of that.
So, yeah, on top of that. Um, but, so it's a beautiful thing though, it's
Yeah.
something that, to be able to share that with, the person you love and you spend the most time with and you travel the world with, there's nothing like it. So but you do have to step back and you're like, okay, I played all the notes I could in my music. Thankfully,
Yeah.
I saved some for the rest of the show. But yeah, it's fun to do that because my trio doesn't tour as much, um, but it gives the audience a chance to see maybe what I do or what my music is, and if I you know
Mhm.
gave them more guitar. They're like, "Well, what's your CD sound like, or what's your vinyl sound like?" I'm like, "Well, there's more guitar,
Right.
so if you like more guitar, I would get it." So
Yeah.
they get to experience that too, and it's fun because it's it's similar enough yet just different enough that it works for the
Mhm.
opening slot, which is nice, and we keep it all in house.
Yeah. One of the funny things that happened at that same Town Center show, I don't know if you remember this, but you gotten done sound checking and we were over figuring out the merch stuff and your keyboard player, I don't remember his name, but he goes,
Damon, yeah,
David, he was like, he looks at you, he goes, "You wearing a Brandon Miller shirt on stage tonight?" And Daniel, like, without even she didn't miss a beat. She goes, "Not on my stage."
that's right. Yep, you got it.
I
Yeah,
mean, it's like, okay, at least right at that point, the hierarchy had been determined for that show,
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
you were totally cool with it. Like, this is
Yeah.
I know this is the way this goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's just like my wife, like, "Not in my house."
That's right. That's right.
Not in my house.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so, man, so much good stuff here. Like, I mean, is there anything you can think back is like you would have told yourself to do differently? If you got to talk to you at Bradley's age or Gunner's age.
Um, I probably would have told myself to maybe focus on original music a little earlier than what I did.
Mm,
Um, I didn't until, my first album came out. Um, I just turned 20 when I released my first solo album. And I had written a lot of that stuff in high school and my first year or two of college. And I did do an EP with Static 210, my band from high school, but that didn't that didn't last long.
mhm,
Um, and the funny thing about that band was, we're all for, when we really started gigging a lot, we were um 15. I was 15. The other guys were 16, and they were a year older than me. Um, but we were kind of this little niche band of 15 and 16-year-old high school kids, but we were playing the Beatles and REO Speedwagon and Peter Frampton, and we would do Freebird, you know? So it's like all of our parents and their friends were like, dude, this is so cool. Like all these kids are into classic rock
Yeah.
and everything. But we kind of got stuck in a rut where as a 15-year-old kid, you know, you go to a cover band gig and they're like, it's $100 a man, you know, and at 15 years old, you're like, this is sweet, you
Yeah.
know, this is way better than working at
Yeah.
McDonald's.
Not at 45
Um,
years old, but at 15 is
yeah. And
great.
then you fast forward 20
Yeah.
years later, you still make $100 a gig.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't tell us that, but,
Right.
um, but you know, it was like we did that, and we were gigging a lot, and we would do private parties
Mhm.
and um you know, outdoor street festivals and fairs, and we were making really good money as high school I mean, as any band, but let alone a bunch of high school kids.
Mhm.
So whenever we would get the opportunity to go play original music, we were excited about it. But, you know, you do a show with 3 other
Right.
rock bands in high school, and at the end of the night, they're like, "Okay, here's your $16 and your $16."
Yeah.
But it was like, then we look at it and we're like, "Wait, we have to divide. We made $16 as a band?"
Yeah.
You know? And we're like, it was just that fine line of, you know, we kinda just got stuck worrying about, "Oh, let's go make money,"
Yeah.
instead of, you know, really pushing the original music. So I think that's something, that I would go back and tell myself to do differently, you know,
Yeah.
at least explore that more. Looking back at it now, I see, um, younger generations and kids, or even, you know, back in the day, like other kids we went to high school with, or that would go, other bands that we knew that were in Olathe or Overland Park and stuff that we would do those shows with. It was like, man, there's just something so raw and just rock and roll about it that we were, I guess, I don't know, just a little too polished, or um
Mhm.
just on the professional side of things with the cover band, where you're like, oh, you gotta, you know, look this way and do that, and you know,
Yeah.
so I think that would probably be the main thing, was just the original music and allowing that creativity to come out a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, do
Yeah,
you think artists get trapped in thinking they have to do one or the other, and so they don't really
I
focus on, you know?
I think so. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think you're 100% right on that. And it's something that we discuss and other original artists, where it's like there's a younger, I wouldn't say younger generation, but even like kids maybe in their late 20s, early 30s, that, like you said, were like, well, I either only can do original music or I can only do cover band
Mhm.
stuff. And maybe they see that, they're like, well, this is just easy money. I can go out and make $150 a night, and or I could join this tribute band and make even more money. And
Mhm.
they're like, well, I can make money and buy all the cool gear I want. And they maybe later in life regret not taking that chance on
Yeah.
original music, or even just taking that chance and like moving to Nashville or LA or New York and
Mhm.
collaborating with other people on original music. Or even if you're just a hired gun, you're still a part of that creative,
Yeah.
you know, mindset of the music side of things, rather than you're more of a entertainer rather than an artist.
Yeah.
And that's a tough thing, because there are, you know, it's just like you see different tribute bands playing around the country and things, and you're like, there's a tribute band for this artist and this artist,
Mhm.
and you're like, you know, like, I don't want to call anybody out, but like there's some bands where you just see a tribute to such and such, and you're like, I can only think like I can only think of like 2 or 3 hits that they had. Like, how how can you, like, how can you do a whole 90-minute set? And I can't even think of more than 2 or 3 songs that they did or that were on the radio, but,
Yeah.
um, it is what it is. I guess as long as you're playing music and you're happy doing it, then I can't judge. So,
Well, I think that's the bottom line, if how you happy doing it, am I making the decision because I because of money or because this is my passion,
right.
you
Yeah.
know?
And it's kind of the same thing,
Mm,
you can we were talking about that yesterday about Danielle and I about we kind of circle back to, defining your own success. And don't let anybody else define your own success
mm,
or compare it to someone else's success. And, it's like, yeah, you can play original music or you can just play in a cover band or a tribute band, whatever it may be. And you can compare that to, you know, other business avenues and entrepreneurs where you're like, hey, you can either open your own unique, one of a kind burger joint, or you can say, hey, I just want to own a franchise of McDonald's. It's
mm,
still a burger joint. You're
right,
cooking, you're doing all that. But, um, there, as long as you're happy and you serve people or whatever it may be, and,
yeah,
then that's your purpose and you're cool with it. So,
yeah, for sure. So what's on the horizon? What's coming up this next year for you guys?
yeah, we just, back in November, we did the first session for our latest album. We tracked out and finished up 7 songs. So we'll be finishing up the second half of the album probably in February. Um, and that'll be out probably mid to late summer. Um, and in January, we're hitting the UK for about a week and a half over there, and then coming home. Um, Going down to Memphis for the International Blues Challenge with the Blues Foundation.
Mm,
We were very involved in the Blues Foundation in Memphis. We're usually down there hanging out for the Blues Challenge as well as the Blues Music Awards week in May, where they have the Hall of Fame inductees and then the award ceremony. Um, and then recently, another thing that we're getting more involved with, kind of like you had mentioned with the Jerry's Jam Night and the next generation and the youth. But in June we'll be we did it this past year for the first time, but we work with the Pinetop Perkins Youth Foundation, and they
mm,
do a youth workshop down in Clarksdale, Mississippi. The crossroads and the home of the blues down there.
mhm,
Um, and they do that. So we're going to be going back down there and teaching some youth workshop classes and hanging out with the kids for a week. And we look forward to that. But then we'll be on the legendary Rhythm and Blues Cruise at the end of January, beginning of February. We're getting ready to announce a big Northeast tour in March and April. Um, Back to Europe in July for most of the month. And then we have a big European tour in November next year as well. We'll be hitting the Pacific Northwest. Kind of just it's going to be a really busy year, which is good.
yeah. I mean, if somebody uses the term "living the dream," it really seems like that's what you're doing.
Yeah,
You're
it's
not just saying it, you are actually doing it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's funny when people we like to, we still love to live here in Kansas City, and we couldn't really. There's a few places we were like, oh, it might be cool to live there,
Mhm,
but Kansas City's always going to be home. And it allows us to tour differently than others and
mhm,
figure out the logistics. And like you said, living the dream of being able to, you know, do an overnight drive real quick and we're on the East Coast. We're up in Philly or New York, or,
yeah,
we can start a West Coast tour and just drive overnight and we're down in Phoenix and then San Diego, LA, and we work up the coast. Um, but we're a small operation and we like to keep it a small operation.
mhm.
Um,
Lean,
and yeah, lean and
mean,
we, Danielle and I do all the driving.
mhm,
and we've been having Pat Adams play a lot of drums with us lately. Kelsey Cook has been drumming as well. But it's a small operation and we work hard. And when we go out, we don't like days off. So we'll do, I think our craziest one last year was, and somehow Danielle was able to sing through it, but we did 12 shows in 13 days.
Wow.
I think that was like, 4,000 miles.
Mm.
And you just, we like to get out and work and then we get home and then we can stay home for, 2 weeks and not have to stretch out a tour for too long. So
Yeah.
it's definitely living the dream for sure.
Yeah. Man, I really appreciate you being on. I mean, it's so good
Absolutely.
catching up with you.
Yeah. Thanks for reaching out and having me. I always love
So,
catching up, and it's always fun.
yeah,
We
thanks.
didn't even get to talk gear this time, so
Well,
we'll have to do it again.
we will. We'll do it again, Top Gear.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right, dude. Have a great day, man.
Thank you. You
Yep.
too.
Thanks, Brandon. You've been listening to Brandon Miller on Gigso.